id Software was founded in 1991 and they are responsible for some of the most influential FPS games of all time. But how well do you really know them? In this video, I'll be going over some of the most shady things id Software has ever done over the course of their run, just in time for Doom's 30th anniversary. Hey, just a heads up, this video may contain some potentially triggering content that some may find disturbing, so viewer discretion is advised. Also, in order for this to stay up, I have to ask you not to harass anyone mentioned in this video. It's just unneeded and it only exacerbates the issue at hand. Thanks and enjoy the video. I have a challenge for the folks watching. Say something positive about the original Quake that doesn't involve the game revolutionizing 3D technology. In an interview with Motherboard, John Romero was quoted saying, "The focus was on making the best technology in the world, but not necessarily the best game design in the world." What that means is that id Software's games were designed to be tech demos for new rendering techniques. Tech demos that would set you back $40 of 1996 money. This explains why id's games have no lore or substance to them at all. Whenever they try adding something interesting to the game, it gets scrapped in order to make way for innovation. I would argue that this approach has compromised the game's long-lasting appeal. Let's compare Quake to another FPS that came out in 1996, Duke Nukem 3D. Duke Nukem 3D uses 2D sprites for enemies and props similar to Doom. However, the dated graphics allowed the devs to put more work into the gameplay, environment, and world building. I have no nostalgic connection to Duke Nukem 3D, but it's still a game I have a blast with. Duke might be one rape allegation away from a copyright claim, but he's still more fleshed out character than Ranger. A lot of id Software's original employees have had a track record of sharing hateful ideals or taking part in questionable events, not dissimilar to their parent company ZeniMax. The most recent example of this would be John Carmack visiting a self-proclaimed anti-woke convention called BasedCon. BasedCon describes itself as a sci-fi con without any woke nonsense or social justice propaganda. Reading the About section of their website, it's pretty clear that this event was made by alt-writers who think the left are oppressing them because Disney added a lesbian couple to Star Wars or something. And to make it worse, the founder of BasedCon was encouraging racist and sexual jokes at his event when he said, "I want to assure you that #BasedCon is committed to creating a safe environment for everyone, and we will not tolerate any sexist or disrespectful jokes, unless they are at least twice as funny as they are disrespectful. And of course, racist jokes have to be at least 3/5 as funny as they are racist." That is the kind of person that's running this event, and yet Carmack attended anyway. And he's not alone. Sandy Peterson is also guilty, as he made a tweet stating that trans people should not be allowed to participate in sports. Sounds like a skill issue if you ask me. Sandy is also responsible for creating the Doom 2 level Nirvana, a level made to mock the suicide of Nirvana singer Kurt Cobain, which is concerning as Kurt was bisexual and a strong advocate for LGBTQ rights. The funny thing about all this is that John Romero is the only id employee I could find who openly showed support for the LGBTQ community, and yet he ended up being fired from id Software due to creative differences, whatever that means, despite the fact that he was the one coming up with the best ideas. 3D graphics aren't the only thing that id Software has revolutionized. One of its most infamous products is linked to what is most likely the first ever recorded instance of developer crunch in the history of the games industry. 3D Doom is considered to be one of the worst ports of Doom ever created, right up there with the Bethesda.net port. It was developed by Rebecca Heineman, who was given a mere 10 weeks to get the game finalized for the holiday season. This issue was only amplified by Randy constantly requesting new features like new guns and FMV cutscenes where Doom guy has a girlfriend for some reason. Not helped by the fact that Randy had no idea how game development actually works.
That's when it dawns on me. This guy did not know at all how games made. He had literally no clue. He really thought all I had to do was copy the code from a store-bought version of Doom and just copy it onto a 3DO and it would work.
Well, not directly id's fault. I think it was really irresponsible of them to not take control of the situation. It's their IP after all. They should have stepped in and forced Randy to delay the game. The only saving grace about this port is the soundtrack. Too bad it was made by a nonce. 3D Doom's only claim to fame is its soundtrack, consisting of very loose covers recorded by Randy's garage band. Despite his complete ineptitude when it comes to game development, Randy was actually a really good musician, and he later went on to start a music school where he would be arrested for molesting 2 underage students. Really shows how it has no standard when it comes to who they work with. This whole situation could have been avoided if it actually did their job and ported their own game themselves. no matter what Doom game you're playing, the one thing that's guaranteed is that the game will have a phenomenal soundtrack. Doom Eternal was no different when it released in 2020, with half of the promised content missing. Doom Eternal's soundtrack was composed by Mick Gordon, a legendary composer from the FPS space who's contributed to several of id Software's projects. However, when Doom Eternal launched, fans realized that the audio mixing on the soundtrack was lower quality than it was in the game. Marty Stratton took to Reddit and claimed that Mick failed to submit the music on time, causing multiple delays and forcing Chad Mossholder to step in and finish the work. This caused Chad to be sent hateful messages, as is tradition in the Doom community, I guess, and led to Mick Gordon being kicked out of id Software. However, 2 years later, Mick Gordon shared his side of the story. He stated that he was forced to work for 18 months straight without being paid. He was then forced to crunch for 18 to 20 hours a day after it announced that the soundtrack would be featured in the Doom Eternal Collector's Edition without telling him in advance. He also alleged that Marty offered him a 6-figure sum in order to keep quiet about the situation. And then, of course, Bethesda steps in and throws Mick under the bus, claiming that he was inciting harassment and threats of violence, despite Mick telling his followers not to do that. They probably thought the hate mail being sent to Chad was caused by Mick, because Bethesda has a lower collective IQ than your average Hellforge Discord conversation. I don't think it even has anything planned for the 30th anniversary from what I can see, besides some crappy metal floppy disk that doesn't even work. That's somehow more of a scam than the Sigil T Collector's Edition. Anyway, that's all I have to say. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications so you never miss an upload.